The stars had always been silent. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They built telescopes and sent signals into the darkness. They dreamed of meeting other beings who lived among those distant lights. On the morning of March 15th in the year 2182, humanity got its answer. The answer was not friendly. Admiral stood on the observation deck of the United Earth Defense Station, her hands clasped behind her back. Through the reinforced glass she could see them. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands. They filled the space between Earth and the Moon like a swarm of metal insects. Each ship was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Each one carried weapons that could turn cities into ash. The head arrived. Was 53 years old. She had spent 30 years in the Earth Defense Force. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belt. She had led rescue missions on Mars. She had seen many terrible things in her life, but she had never seen anything like this. "Admiral," said a young officer behind her. His name was Ho. He was tall and thin, with sharp eyes that never missed anything. "The alien vessel is requesting communication." Did not turn around. She kept looking at the enemy fleet. "How many ships do we have?" Ho checked his tablet. 247 combat-ready vessels, Admiral. Another 63 are still under repair. And they have. Our sensors count over 4,000 ships, but there may be more hiding behind the moon. Closed her eyes for a moment. The numbers were impossible. Even if every human ship fought perfectly, they would be destroyed in hours, maybe minutes. "Open the communication channel," she said. The main screen on the observation deck flickered to life. An alien face appeared. They looked almost like humans, but not quite. Their skin was pale blue. Their eyes were completely black with no white part at all. They had no hair. Their mouths were too wide, and when they spoke, could see rows of small, sharp teeth. "I am High Commander of the Empire," the alien said. Its voice was strange, like metal scraping against stone. "I speak to the leaders of the human species." "I am Admiral of the United Earth Defense Force," replied. Her voice was calm and steady. She would not show fear to this creature. "Why have you come to our home?" Made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your home? This planet belongs to the Empire now. We have claimed it. You will surrender immediately. All humans will become property of the. You will work for us. You will serve us. This is not a request. This is an order." Felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her face like stone. "And if we refuse? Then we will destroy your cities one by one. We will burn your forests. We will poison your oceans. Every human who resists will die. Every human who survives will wish they had died." Leaned closer to the screen. "You have 72 hours to surrender. If we do not receive your complete submission by then, the destruction will begin." The screen went black. For a long moment, no one on the observation deck spoke. Could hear her own breathing. She could hear the soft hum of the station's machines. She could hear the fear in the silence. "Admiral," Ho said quietly, "what do we do?" Turned to face her crew. There were 12 people on the deck, young men and women, officers and technicians. They all looked at her with wide eyes. They were scared. Of course they were scared. Anyone would be scared. "We call a meeting of the United Terran Assembly," said. "Every leader on Earth needs to hear what just happened, and then we make a decision together." "But Admiral," another officer said. Her name was Bin. She was young, barely 25, with a round face and worried eyes. "They have 4,000 ships. We cannot fight them. It is impossible." "Maybe," said. "Maybe it is impossible, but that is not my decision to make alone. This affects every human being alive. 8 billion people. They deserve to have a voice in what happens next." Within 3 hours, the leaders of Earth gathered in the Great Hall of the United Terran Assembly in Geneva. Presidents and prime ministers, generals and scientists, representatives from every nation and every colony. They came in person or through holographic projections. The hall was filled with faces from every corner of humanity. Stood at the center of the room and told them what had happened. She showed them the video she showed them the images of the alien fleet. She told them the numbers, 4,000 ships against 300, weapons that could destroy continents, a deadline of 72 hours. When she finished speaking, the hall erupted into noise. People shouted at each other, some cried, some prayed, some sat in stunned silence. A man named Park Dongwoo stood up. He was the president of the Asian Federation, a large man with gray hair and a booming voice. "We must surrender," he said. "There is no other choice. If we fight, we die, all of us. 8 billion people. Think of the children, think of the future. We must survive, even as slaves." "Slaves?" another voice rang out. It belonged to General One, the commander of Earth's ground forces. She was a small woman, but her voice was like thunder. "You want us to become slaves, to bow down to creatures who see us as property. What kind of future is that?" "A future where we are alive," Dongwu replied. "A dead species has no future at all." The argument continued for hours. Some agreed with Dongwu. They said survival was more important than pride. They said humanity could wait, could plan, could rise again someday. Others agreed with one. They said there were things worse than death. They said slavery would destroy humanity's soul even if their bodies survived. Listened to all of them. She watched their faces. She heard their arguments, and she thought about something she had not told them yet. "May I speak?" she said finally. The hall went quiet. Everyone turned to look at her. "I have listened to both sides," said, "and I understand the fear. I feel it too. 4,000 ships against 300. It seems impossible, but I want to show you something." She pressed a button on her tablet. A holographic image appeared in the center of the hall. It showed a ship, but this image was different. It showed the inside of the ship, the engines, the power systems, the shields. "Our intelligence teams have been working since they arrived," said. "They scanned the alien ships, they analyzed their technology, and they found something interesting." She pointed to a glowing section of the image. "This is the power core of a warship. It runs on a rare element called. Without, their ships cannot fly, their weapons cannot fire, their shields cannot protect them." "So what?" Dongwu said. "They have plenty of, they came all the way across the galaxy." "Yes," said, "but is unstable, it can be destroyed, and our scientists believe they know how." A murmur went through the hall. People leaned forward in their seats. "If we can create a weapon that targets," continued, "we can disable their entire fleet, not by fighting them ship to ship, but by attacking their weakness, by being smarter than they expect." One nodded slowly. "A surgical strike, take out their power and they cannot fight." "Exactly," said. "It will not be easy. We will need time to develop the weapon. We will need to keep them distracted. We will need to take enormous risks. But it is possible. Victory is possible." The hall was silent again, but this time the silence felt different. It felt like hope. Ho stepped forward. He had been standing behind the whole time, quiet and watchful. Now he spoke to the assembly. "I volunteer to lead the strike team," he said. "Give me the best pilots in the fleet. Give me the fastest ships. When the weapon is ready, I will deliver it to the enemy. I will burn their power cores to ash." Looked at him. Ho was young. He had a family back on Earth, a wife and a daughter. He knew that what he was volunteering for might kill him, but his eyes were steady and sure. "Thank you, Commander," said softly. President Dongwu stood up again. His face was troubled. "This is madness. We are gambling with the lives of every person on Earth." "No," General One said. "Surrender is gambling with our lives. Fighting back is taking control of our own destiny." The debate continued for another hour, but slowly the tide began to turn. More and more leaders spoke in favor of resistance. They talked about courage. They talked about dignity. They talked about showing the galaxy that humanity would not bow down to any threat. Finally, a vote was called. One by one, the leaders cast their decisions. The result was not unanimous, but it was clear. By a margin of 63% to 37%, the United Terran Assembly chose defiance. Stood before them one last time. Then it is decided, we will not surrender, we will fight, but we must be smart. We must not let them know what we are planning. For the next 72 hours we will pretend to negotiate. We will stall. We will lie. And while we buy time, our scientists will work. Our soldiers will prepare. And when we are ready, we will show these invaders what humans are made of. The assembly rose to their feet. Some were crying, some were cheering, but all of them stood together. Outside the hall, through the windows, the night sky was filled with enemy ships. They hung there like a promise of death. But did not look at them. She was already thinking about the days ahead, about the weapon that needed to be built, about the pilots who would carry it into battle, about the flames that would soon light up the darkness of space. Humanity had made its choice. Now they had to make it count. The first 12 hours after the vote were chaos. Messages flew across Earth and through space. Orders were given. Plans were made. And in the middle of it all, Admiral barely slept. She had two jobs now. The first was to keep the talking. The second was to prepare humanity for war. Both jobs seemed impossible, but impossible was becoming a normal word these days. Admiral Ho said, entering her office on the defense station, "They are demanding to speak with you again." Rubbed her tired eyes. "How many times is that now?" 7 times in 12 hours. They are impatient, stood up from her desk. Good, impatient enemies make mistakes. She walked to the communication room where a large screen waited. When she nodded, an officer opened the channel. The face of High Commander appeared once again, his black eyes cold and angry. Human Admiral said, "We grow tired of waiting. Your leaders meet and talk, but we hear no answer. Have you decided to surrender?" Kept her face calm. Inside, her heart was racing. She had to lie. She had to lie perfectly. "High Commander," she said, "I understand your impatience, but you must understand our situation. Earth has many nations, many leaders, many voices. We cannot make such an important decision quickly. We need more time." Made that strange scraping sound again. "Time? You waste time with your foolish discussions. The answer is simple: surrender or die." "Nothing is simple when 8 billion lives are at stake," replied. "Our people are afraid. They need to believe that their leaders made the right choice. If we rush this decision, there will be unrest, rebellion, chaos. That will make things harder for everyone, including you." Stared at her for a long moment. His black eyes revealed nothing. "You have 48 hours remaining," he said finally. "Use them wisely. When the time ends, so does your species." The screen went dark. Ho let out a breath. "That was close. Do you think he believed you?" "I do not know," admitted. "They are hard to read, but I think they are arrogant. They believe we are weak and stupid. That arrogance might be their greatest weakness." While played her dangerous game with another kind of work was happening deep beneath the mountains of Korea. In a secret laboratory built into the rock itself, a team of scientists worked without rest. The leader of this team was a woman named. She was 37 years old, with short black hair and glasses that were always slightly crooked. She was one of the people on Earth. She had won prizes for her work in energy physics. She had solved problems that other scientists said could not be solved. Now she faced the biggest problem of her life. "Show me the data again," said to her assistant, a young man named Ho. Ho put the information on the screen. It showed everything they knew about the element that powered ships. The data came from scans of the alien fleet taken in secret by Earth satellites. "Is incredibly powerful," Ho explained. 1 gram of it can produce more energy than a nuclear reactor, but it is also unstable, very unstable. Nodded slowly. "And that instability is the key. If we can find the right frequency, the right energy pulse, We can make all the in a ship explode at once. But the frequency must be exact, another scientist said. Her name was Youngmi and she specialized in wave patterns. If we are even slightly wrong, nothing will happen. The will stay stable. Then we will find the exact frequency, said. We have no choice. The work continued hour after hour. The scientists ran simulations on their computers. They tested theories. They argued and debated. They drank coffee until their hands shook. They forgot to eat. They forgot to sleep. And slowly, piece by piece, they began to find answers. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Commander Ho gathered his strike team. They met on a small station hidden among the rocks, far from the eyes of the fleet. Ho looked at the pilots who had volunteered. There were 20 of them, the best flyers in the Earth Defense Force, men and women who had spent their lives dancing between asteroids and dodging enemy fire. They were young and old, quiet and loud, serious and joking. But they all had one thing in common. They were willing to die for their planet. I will not lie to you, Ho said. This mission is dangerous. The most dangerous thing any of us has ever done. We will fly into the heart of the enemy fleet. We will deliver a weapon that has never been tested in real combat. Many of us will not come back. He paused and looked at each face in turn. But if we succeed, we will save our world. We will save everyone we love, every child, every parent, every friend. That is what we fight for. That is why we are here. A pilot named Bora raised her hand. She was young, maybe 25, with a fierce light in her eyes. Commander, when do we fly? When the weapon is ready, Ho said. Until then, we train. We study the enemy ships. We learn their patterns. We find their blind spots. When the time comes, we will be ready. The pilots nodded. They understood. They began their preparations without complaint. Back on Earth, the world held its breath. News of the alien fleet had spread everywhere. People watched the sky with fear in their hearts. Some prayed in churches and temples. Some held their families close. Some rioted in the streets, angry and scared. The governments tried to keep order. Police patrolled the cities. Soldiers guarded important buildings. Messages of calm played on every screen. But underneath it all, everyone knew the truth. Humanity was facing the greatest threat in its history. In Geneva, the United Terran Assembly met again. This time, the discussion was about details. How would they distribute resources? How would they protect civilians? How would they keep the secret of their true plans? General 1 presented her strategy. We will move people underground. Every city has shelters. We built them during the last wars. They are old, but they will protect against bombardment. What about food? A representative asked. Water. We have stockpiles. They will last for months. If we ration carefully, we can survive a long siege. President Dongwu shook his head. He had voted against fighting, but now he was part of the effort. He had no choice. And if the weapon does not work, what then? Then we fight with what we have, one said simply. We make them pay for every kilometer. We never surrender. We never give up. The room was silent. Everyone knew what that meant. It meant death, slow, terrible death. Admiral stood up. The weapon will work. I have faith in our scientists. I have faith in our pilots. And I have faith in humanity. We have survived ice ages. We have survived plagues. We have survived wars that killed millions. We are still here. We will still be here when they are dust. Her words rang through the hall. Some people nodded. Some wiped tears from their eyes, but no one argued. 36 hours remained. In the mountain laboratory, finally found what she was looking for. There, she whispered, staring at the screen. That is the frequency. Ho looked over her shoulder. Are you sure? Run the simulation again. They ran it. On the screen, a virtual ship appeared. A pulse of energy hit it at the exact frequency had calculated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship's power core began to glow, brighter and brighter, until suddenly it exploded in a ball of white fire. It works, Young Me breathed. It actually works. Allowed herself a small smile, but only for a moment. Now we have to build it, a real weapon, not a simulation, and we have to do it in less than 30 hours. That is impossible, Ho said. Then we will do the impossible, replied. Get everyone back to work. No one sleeps until this weapon is finished. The scientists worked through the night. They built the device piece by piece, their hands moving with desperate speed. They checked every connection. They tested every component. They argued about details and fixed mistakes and kept going even when their eyes could barely stay open. And as they worked, the clock kept ticking. 24 hours, 20, 16. Admiral contacted them every few hours. How is the progress? We are close, always answered. Just a little more time. But time was running out. At 12 hours remaining, the contacted Earth again. This time was not alone. Behind him could see other aliens, officers and advisors. They all looked angry. Human Admiral said, We have lost patience. Your time is almost over. We have heard no surrender. We have seen no submission. What is your answer? Took a deep breath. This was the most dangerous moment yet. She had to buy a few more hours without making the suspicious. High Commander, she said carefully, our assembly has voted. The decision was difficult. Many wanted to fight, but in the end, wisdom won over pride. Leaned forward, you surrender. We are prepared to discuss terms, said, but we need guarantees. Promises that our people will be treated fairly, that families will not be separated, that we will be given food and shelter. These negotiations will take time. We do not negotiate, snarled. We give orders. Then give us orders we can follow, replied calmly. Tell us exactly what you want. How should we prepare our people? How should we organize the transition? Help us help you, High Commander. If you want this to go smoothly, we need details. Stared at her. The other whispered among themselves in their strange language. Very well, said finally. We will send you our requirements. You will follow them exactly, but no more delays. In 12 hours your surrender will be complete. If it is not, he smiled, showing his rows of sharp teeth. Then the burning begins. The screen went dark. Ho was beside immediately. Did it work? Did you buy us time? I do not know, said. Maybe a few hours, maybe nothing, but every minute counts now. She opened a channel to the mountain laboratory. His tired face appeared on the screen. Tell me you are close, said. Nodded slowly. The weapon is almost ready. We just need to install the final components and run a test. Maybe 4 more hours. You have 3, said. After that we are out of time. Did not argue. She just nodded and went back to work. 3 hours. That was all they had. 3 hours to finish the weapon. 3 hours to load it onto Ho's ships. 3 hours to save the human race. In the asteroid base, the strike team waited. Their ships were fueled and armed. Their pilots were ready. They had trained for this moment. They had practiced every maneuver 100 times. Now they just needed the weapon. Ho stood alone by a window looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the asteroids, the fleet waited. Thousands of ships, ready to destroy everything he loved. He thought about his wife, Sunmi. He thought about his daughter, Min. She was only 5 years old. She liked to catch butterflies in their garden. She laughed at everything. She did not understand what was happening. She did not know that her father might never come home. Ho closed his eyes. He would fight for her. He would fly into the flames for her. And if he died, he would die knowing he had given her a chance to live. His communicator beeped. A message from. The weapon is ready. We are loading it now. Ho opened his eyes. A fierce smile crossed his face. Pilots, he called out. It is time. Get to your ships. We fly in 1 hour. The response was immediate. 20 pilots ran to the hangar bay, their feet pounding against the metal floor. 20 ships powered up, their engines humming with deadly promise. In 1 hour, They would either save humanity or die trying. There was no third option. The weapon was beautiful in a terrible way. It sat in the cargo bay of Ho's ship, a cylinder of metal and crystal about 2 meters long. Inside, complex machinery waited to release a pulse of energy that could change everything, or destroy everything. The line between those two possibilities was very thin. Had traveled to the asteroid base herself to oversee the loading. She stood next to Ho, her face pale with exhaustion but her eyes bright with determination. The device is simple to use, she explained. Once you are within range of the flagship, you activate this switch here. The weapon will charge for 30 seconds. Then it will release the pulse. Everything within 500 kilometers that uses will lose power. And explode, Ho asked. The power cores will overload. Yes, there will be explosions. Paused. Many explosions. Ho looked at the weapon. Such a small thing to carry so much death. What about our own ships? Will we be affected? No, human ships use different power sources. The pulse will only affect. Put her hand on his arm. But you must be close. Very close. The flagship has stronger shields than the other ships. You need to get within 200 kilometers for the pulse to penetrate. 200 kilometers. Ho did the math in his head. That was almost point-blank range in space combat. They would see them coming. They would try to stop them. Can our shields survive their weapons at that distance? Did not answer. She did not need to. They both knew the truth. We will get close enough, Ho said. I promise you that. Nodded. Her eyes were wet, but she did not cry. Scientists did not cry. Not yet. There would be time for tears later, one way or another. Come back alive, she said quietly. All of you. That is an order from the scientist who built your miracle weapon. Ho smiled. Yes, doctor. He turned to his pilots who were gathered in the hangar bay. They stood beside their ships, 20 men and women in flight suits. Some were checking their equipment. Some were talking quietly. Some were praying. Listen carefully, Ho said, and they all fell silent. The mission is simple. We will fly toward the fleet pretending to be a surrender convoy. Admiral will tell the enemy that we are bringing gifts and supplies as a sign of submission. They will let us approach. And when we are close enough, Bora asked. When we are close enough, we drop the act. We punch through their formation at maximum speed. Our target is the flagship, the biggest ship in their fleet. That is where the High Commander sits. That is where we deliver the weapon. Pilot Wu raised his hand. He was an older man, nearly 50, with gray in his hair and scars on his face from old battles. What about the other ships? 4,000 of them between us and the target. Most of them will be too slow to react, Ho said. We will be moving fast, very fast. We will also have help. He pressed a button on his communicator. A holographic map appeared, showing the space around Earth. While we attack the flagship, the rest of Earth's fleet will launch diversionary strikes at the edges of the formation. They will draw attention away from us. The enemy will not know where to look. How many of our ships will survive those attacks? Another pilot asked. Her name was Min. She had a husband in the regular fleet. Ho paused. Not many, they know that. They volunteered anyway. The hangar was silent. Everyone understood what that meant. The pilots who flew the diversion were not planning to come home. They were sacrificing themselves to give the strike team a chance. We owe them everything, Ho said. We will not waste their gift. We will reach that flagship. We will fire the weapon, and we will save our world. He looked at each pilot in turn. Young faces and old faces. Scared faces and brave faces. All of them ready to do what needed to be done. Get to your ships. We launch in 10 minutes. On Earth, Admiral prepared for her greatest performance. She stood in the communication room, surrounded by officers and technicians. The screen in front of her showed the fleet, still hanging in space like a cloud of death. Open the channel, she said. High Commander appeared on the screen. His black eyes seemed to glow with satisfaction. Human Admiral, the time has almost come. Are you ready to submit? Bowed her head slightly. It was hard to do. Every part of her wanted to spit in this creature's face, but she had to play her role perfectly. Lives depended on it. High Commander, we are ready. The leaders of Earth have agreed to your terms. We will become subjects of the Empire. Smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Good, very good. You are wiser than we expected. As a sign of our submission, continued, we are sending a convoy of ships to your flagship. They carry valuable resources, gold, rare minerals, food and drink for your officers. Please accept them as a gift from the human race to our new masters. The lie tasted bitter in her mouth, but it worked. Nodded, his smile growing wider. We accept your tribute. Send your ships, but do not try anything foolish. If we detect weapons or tricks, we will destroy your planet immediately. Of course, High Commander, we are not foolish. We know when we are beaten. The screen went dark. Turned to her officers. Send the signal to Commander Ho. The door is open. In the asteroid base, Ho received the message. He was already in his ship, strapped into the pilot's seat, his hands resting on the controls. Through the cockpit window, he could see the other ships of his team, lined up and ready. This is Strike Leader to all pilots, he said into his communicator. We have permission to approach. Remember, until I give the signal, we are a peaceful convoy. No aggressive moves, no weapons charged. We are humble servants bringing gifts to our masters. 20 voices answered, Yes, Commander. The ships lifted off from the asteroid base, their engines burning blue in the darkness of space. They flew in formation, moving slowly and carefully. To anyone watching, they looked harmless, just a collection of transport vessels carrying cargo. But inside those vessels, hearts beat fast and hands gripped controls. Inside those vessels, 20 pilots waited for the moment when the masks would come off. The journey to the fleet took 2 hours. 2 hours of silence and tension. 2 hours of watching the enemy ships grow larger and larger on the screens. 2 hours of pretending to be something they were not. Ho used the time to think. He thought about his daughter again, about her laugh, about the way she ran to hug him whenever he came home. He thought about his wife, Sunmi, about her smile, about the way she sang while cooking dinner. He might never see them again, he knew that, but he also knew why he was here. Some things were worth dying for. Freedom was one of them, family was another. As they approached the fleet, Ho could see the true size of the enemy. The ships were even bigger than they had looked on the screens. Each one was a mountain of metal, bristling with weapons. Each one could destroy a city with a single shot. And in the center of the fleet, the flagship waited. It was the largest ship of all, almost 10 kilometers long. It looked like a sword made of black metal, pointed at Earth's heart. That is our target, Ho whispered to himself. That is where we end this. A voice came through the communication system. Human convoy, you will proceed to docking bay 7. Follow the guidance signal. Do not deviate from the path. Understood, Ho replied, keeping his voice humble. Thank you for your guidance, honored masters. The sarcasm was invisible, the herd only obedience. The convoy followed the guidance signal, moving deeper into the enemy formation. They passed between giant warships, under the shadows of weapons that could burn them to atoms in seconds. They did not fire. Why would they? These were just tribute ships, carrying gifts from a conquered species. Closer, closer. The flagship grew larger until it filled the entire view. 100 kilometers, 80, 60. Ho's hand moved to the control that would arm his weapons. Not yet, not yet. 40 kilometers, 30. His finger hovered over the button. His heart was a drum in his chest. 20 kilometers. Now, he said into his communicator. All ships execute attack pattern Alpha, weapons free. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Everything happened at once. The strike team ships dropped their disguise. Engines roared to full power, shields activated, weapons charged and fired. 20 vessels transformed from harmless transports into deadly weapons in the space of a heartbeat. At the same time, far across the battlefield, Earth's main fleet launched its diversionary attacks. 200 human ships surged toward the edges of the formation, firing everything they had. Explosions blossomed in space like flowers made of fire. They were caught completely by surprise. For a few precious seconds, they did not know what was happening. Their ships turned in confusion. Their commanders shouted orders. Their weapons searched for targets. Those seconds were all Ho needed. "Push forward," he shouted. "Do not stop for anything." His ship dove toward the flagship, weaving between enemy vessels. Weapons finally began to track him. Energy beams sliced through space, missing him by meters. Missiles launched from every direction. Pilot Bora flew beside him, her ship taking hits that were meant for his. Her shields flickered and failed. Her hull began to crack. "Go," she screamed through the communicator. "Do not stop, complete the mission." Her ship exploded in a ball of fire. Ho did not stop. He could not stop. Bora had given her life to get him this far. He would not waste her sacrifice. 10 kilometers to the flagship. 8, 6. Another ship from his team was destroyed. Then another. They were recovering now, focusing their fire on the strike team. One by one, human vessels died in the darkness. But Ho kept flying. His ship shook with impacts. Warning lights flashed across his controls. His shields were failing. His hull was damaged. None of it mattered. 4 kilometers, 3, 2. He was inside the flagship's outer defenses now, so close he could see the details of the alien hull, weapon ports, sensor arrays, docking bays. And there, at the center of the great ship, the main power core, glowing with the blue light of. "This is Strike Leader," Ho said into his communicator. His voice was steady despite everything. "I am in position, activating the weapon now." He reached for the switch that had shown him. His fingers touched the metal. Behind him, a missile found its target. It struck his ship's rear section, tearing through armor and machinery. The explosion threw Ho forward against his straps. His vision went white with pain. But his hand was still on the switch. And in that moment, with fire all around him and death approaching fast, he pushed it. The weapon activated. 30 seconds had said. 30 seconds until the pulse was released. Ho watched the countdown on his damaged screen. 29, 28, 27. His ship was falling apart. Atmosphere was leaking from 100 holes. His controls were dead. He could do nothing but wait. 20, 19, 18. Through the cracks in his cockpit, he could see the flagship, could see the glow of its power core, could see the weapons still firing at the remains of his team. 10, 9, 8. Ho closed his eyes. He thought of his daughter catching butterflies in the garden. He thought of his wife singing in the kitchen. 3, 2, 1. The weapon fired. A wave of invisible energy expanded from Ho's ship. It passed through metal and shields as if they were not there. It touched every atom of within 500 kilometers. And in every ship, in every power core, they began to burn. The first explosion came from the flagship itself. Admiral watched from the observation deck of the defense station as the great command ship began to glow from within. It started as a faint blue light, barely visible against the darkness of space. Then the light grew brighter and brighter, until it seemed like a star had been born inside the alien vessel. Then the flagship tore itself apart. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but could imagine the sound, the roar of a dying giant, the scream of 1,000 aliens as their world ended in fire. She felt no joy at their deaths, but she felt no sorrow either. They had come to enslave humanity. They had threatened to burn Earth. They had been given a choice, and they had chosen war. Now they paid the price. Around the flagship, other ships began to explode. The pulse from his weapon had spread through the entire formation. Every ship that used was affected. Their power cores overloaded. Their reactors burst. Their hulls cracked open and spilled fire into space. It was like watching a field of flowers bloom, thought, except these flowers were made of death. Admiral Ho's voice crackled through the communicator. It was weak and filled with static, but it was alive. "Admiral, can you hear me?" Grabbed the communicator from an officer's hand. "Ho, you are alive." "Barely," a coughing sound. "My ship is destroyed. I am floating in what is left of the cockpit, but I can see them, Admiral. I can see the enemy burning. It is working. The weapon is working." Tears ran down his face. She did not try to stop them. "Hold on, Commander. We are sending rescue ships. Just hold on." "I will try," another cough. "Tell my wife, tell Sunmi that I love her. Tell my daughter. Tell Min that her father is proud of her, no matter what happens." "You can tell them yourself," said fiercely. "You will come home, that is an order." A weak laugh came through the static. "Yes, Admiral." The communication cut off, turned to her officers. "Get rescue teams out there now. Find Commander Ho and any other survivors. Move." Officers ran to obey. Ships launched from the defense station, racing toward the battlefield. They weaved through debris and fire, searching for any sign of life among the destruction. But the battle was not over yet. Not all of the ships had been destroyed. Some were at the edges of the formation, outside the range of the pulse. Others had partial shields that protected their power cores. These ships were damaged but still functioning. And they were angry. General 1 commanded Earth's ground defenses. She watched the surviving ships from her command center in Tokyo. There were maybe 500 of them left, still a deadly force, still capable of destroying cities. "They are regrouping," her aide reported, "moving into attack formation." "How many of our ships survived the diversion?" one asked. The aide checked his screen. 47, most are damaged." One nodded grimly. 47 ships against 500. The odds were still terrible, but they were better than before. "Tell the fleet to hold position," she ordered. "Protect the defense station. Do not let the enemy get any closer to Earth." The human ships formed a line between the survivors and their home planet. They were battered and broken, leaking atmosphere and trailing debris. But their weapons still worked. Their pilots were still fighting. They attacked. Energy beams lanced across space. Missiles flew in swarms. The two fleets crashed together in a storm of fire and metal. Ships exploded on both sides. Pilots died in the cold darkness. Captain commanded a destroyer called the Phoenix. Her ship had already taken heavy damage during the diversion. Half her crew was dead. Half her weapons were destroyed, but she was still in the fight. "Target the lead cruiser," she ordered. "All forward batteries fire." The Phoenix's remaining guns roared. Energy beams struck the alien ship's shields, weakening them. Then the human vessel fired her missiles, 12 of them racing across the gap between the ships. 9 missiles were destroyed by defenses, but 3 got through. They struck the alien cruiser's hull and exploded. The cruiser shuddered, flames erupting from its sides. "Direct hit," Gunner shouted. "Do not celebrate yet," replied. "Target the next one." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships fought with everything they had. They used every trick, every tactic, every last weapon. They were outnumbered but they refused to give up. And slowly, the tide began to turn. They had lost their flagship. They had lost their high commander. They had lost thousands of ships in seconds. Their communications were in chaos. Their strategy was falling apart. Each ship fought alone, without coordination. The humans fought together. Admiral directed the battle from the defense station, watching every ship, giving orders, coordinating attacks. She saw patterns they did not see. She found weaknesses they did not notice. She turned Earth's small fleet into a single weapon, striking at exactly the right places at exactly the right times. Destroyer Group 3 flanked the enemy formation from below. Cruiser Wing 7 draw their fire. Missile platforms target their engines. Her orders flew across space and her captains obeyed. They were pushed back, then pushed back again. Their formation broke, their ships scattered. 3 hours after the weapon fired, the battle was over. The remaining ships fled. They ran for the edge of the solar system, their engines burning at maximum power. They did not look back. They did not try to regroup. They simply ran as fast as they could away from the planet that had burned their fleet to ash. Humanity had won. The news spread across Earth in minutes. In cities and villages, in shelters and bunkers, people heard what had happened. At first, they did not believe it. How could they? They had been told death was coming. They had prepared for the end of everything. But then they saw the images. The burning ships, the fleeing enemy, the human fleet battered but victorious, and they understood. People poured into the streets. They hugged strangers. They laughed and cried and screamed with joy. In Seoul and Tokyo, in New York and Paris, in Moscow and Cairo, billions of humans celebrated the greatest victory in their history. But not everyone celebrated. In a hospital on the defense station, sat beside a medical bed. In that bed, barely alive, lay Commander Ho. The rescue teams had found him floating in space, still strapped to what was left of his seat. His body was burned and broken. He had almost no air left. His heart had stopped twice during the trip back to the station. But he was alive. Against all odds, he was alive. "You did it," said softly, holding his hand. "The weapon worked. You saved us all." Ho's eyes were closed. His breathing was shallow. Machines beeped and hummed around him, keeping him alive. "His wife and daughter are on their way," a nurse said. "They should arrive in a few hours." Nodded, she did not let go of Ho's hand. "You have to stay alive," she whispered. "You have to meet them. Your daughter wants to show you the butterflies she caught. Your wife wants to sing for you. You cannot leave them now, not after everything." Ho did not respond, but his hand twitched slightly in hers, a small movement, a sign that somewhere inside that broken body he was still fighting. Admiral found there an hour later. The Admiral's face was tired but peaceful. The lines of worry that had marked her features for the past 3 days were finally beginning to fade. "How is he?" she asked. "The doctors say he might live," replied. "If his body is strong enough, if his will is strong enough." "His will," smiled sadly. "That man flew a burning ship into the heart of the enemy fleet. He activated a weapon while his cockpit was falling apart around him. I think his will is the strongest I have ever seen." She sat down beside, and for a moment the two women were silent. "We lost many good people today," said finally. "Almost 200 ships, thousands of pilots and crew. They gave their lives so that humanity could survive." "We should remember them," said. "Build a monument, write their names in stone." "We will, I promise you that. Every name, every sacrifice. The galaxy will know what humans are willing to do for each other." On Earth, the celebrations continued into the night. Fireworks lit up the sky over every major city. Music played in the streets. People danced and sang and held each other tight. But beneath the joy, there was something else. A new feeling. A sense of strength that humanity had never felt before. They had faced extinction. They had stared into the darkness. And they had won. In Geneva, the United Terran Assembly met again. This time, the mood was very different. Leaders who had argued for surrender now admitted they were wrong. Leaders who had pushed for resistance were honored as heroes. President Dongwu stood before the assembly. His face was humble. "I was afraid," he said. "I wanted to surrender because I thought we had no chance. I was wrong. We had something more powerful than weapons. We had courage. We had unity. We had the human spirit." He bowed to the assembly. "I apologize for my weakness, and I thank those who were stronger than me." General One stepped forward. The war is not over. The who escaped will return to their empire. They will tell their leaders what happened here. They will come back with more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. The room fell silent. The celebration suddenly felt hollow. But one continued, "We have time now. Time to build, time to prepare, time to become stronger, and when they come back we will be ready." Admiral rose to speak. "The galaxy now knows about humanity. They know we are not weak. They know we do not surrender. They know we fight with flames when pushed." She looked around at the assembly, at the faces of Earth's leaders. "Let this be our message to the stars. We are humans. We are not slaves. We are not victims. We are not afraid. Come for us if you dare. But know this, we will burn you down if you try." The assembly erupted in applause. The sound echoed through the great hall, through the corridors of power, out into the streets where billions of humans still celebrated. And somewhere in the cold darkness of space, far beyond the edge of the solar system, the surviving ships heard that applause. They heard the roar of human defiance. And for the first time in their history, they felt something they had never felt before. Fear. 6 months passed. The scars of the battle slowly healed. Wreckage was cleared from orbit around Earth. Damaged stations were repaired. New ships were built, better and stronger than the ones that had been lost. But some scars could not be healed so easily. Admiral stood at the edge of a great field outside Geneva. Before her, stretching for almost a kilometer, stood rows of stone pillars. Each pillar bore a name. Each name belonged to someone who had died fighting the. Over 4,000 names. 4,000 people who would never see another sunrise. Walked slowly between the pillars, reading the names as she passed. Some she recognized. Pilots she had trained. Officers she had served with. Friends she had laughed with over meals. They were gone now, but their names would stand here forever. She stopped at one pillar near the center of the field. The name carved into the stone was familiar, Lieutenant Bora. Bora, who had flown beside Ho into the heart of the enemy fleet. Bora, who had taken the fire meant for her commander. Bora, who had screamed "Go!" with her last breath. "Thank you," whispered. "You gave us the chance we needed. Your sacrifice will never be forgotten." She placed a small flower at the base of the pillar and moved on. Not far from the memorial, in a house surrounded by a garden, Commander Ho sat in a chair by a window. He was still recovering from his injuries. His left arm was gone, replaced by a mechanical one that hummed softly when he moved. His face bore scars that would never fade. Walking was difficult. Breathing hurt on cold days. But he was alive. "Daddy, look." His daughter, Min, ran toward him across the garden. She was holding a glass jar, and inside the jar something fluttered with delicate wings. "I caught another butterfly," she said, her eyes shining with pride. "This one has blue wings." Ho smiled. The movement pulled at his scars, but he did not care. "It is beautiful, just like you." Min giggled. She climbed onto his lap, careful not to bump his injured side. "Will you come to the garden with me, Daddy? I can show you where the butterflies live." "In a little while," Ho said. "Let me rest a bit more first." His wife, Sunmi, appeared in the doorway. She was carrying 2 cups of tea. Her face was calm, but Ho could see the worry in her eyes. She always worried about him now. She had almost lost him once. She was afraid of losing him again. "How are you feeling?" she asked, handing him a cup. "Better." He took the tea and sipped it. The warmth spread through his chest. "The doctors say I can start physical therapy next week. In a few months I might be able to walk without help." "And then what?" Sunmi sat beside him, her hand finding his. "Will you go back to the fleet?" Ho was silent for a moment. He looked out the window at the garden, at his daughter chasing butterflies in the sunshine. He thought about the battle, about the fire and the death and the screaming darkness of space. "I do not know," he said finally. "Part of me says yes, we need experienced commanders. They might come back, others might come." And the other part. He looked at her eyes so full of love and fear. The other part wants to stay here, with you, with Min, to watch her grow up, to grow old together. Sunmi squeezed his hand. You already saved the world once. That should be enough for any man. Maybe, he smiled at her. We will see. For now, I am just happy to be alive. Far from Earth, at the edge of space, the survivors of the invasion fleet finally reached home. Their ships were battered and broken. Their crews were exhausted and afraid. They had left with 4,000 warships. They returned with less than 500. The news of their defeat spread through the empire like fire. Emperor III sat on his throne and listened to the reports. His black eyes were cold, but inside he burned with rage. His finest fleet, his most experienced commanders, all destroyed by a species that was supposed to be weak and primitive. How is this possible? He demanded. How could humans defeat us? The messenger who had brought the news knelt before him, trembling. Great Emperor, they had a weapon, a new kind of weapon. It destroyed our power cores, our ships exploded from within. We could not fight it, we could not stop it. Then we will build defenses against this weapon. We will create new shields, new armor. Yes, great Emperor, but what? The messenger hesitated. The humans are not as we thought, great Emperor. They did not surrender even when facing certain death. They fought with a fury we have never seen. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. They are dangerous. Leaned back on his throne. For a long moment he was silent. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had destroyed civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. They had never lost a war, never even come close to losing. Until now. We will return, said finally. We will build a larger fleet. We will develop new weapons. We will crush these humans and burn their planet to ash. Yes, great Emperor, when? When we are ready, it will take time. Years perhaps, but we are patient, and we do not forget. The messenger bowed and sat alone on his throne, staring into the darkness. Somewhere out there, among the stars, the humans were waiting. They knew he would come back. They were preparing. The war was not over, it was just beginning. On Earth, humanity prepared for that war. Factories worked day and night, building ships and weapons. Scientists developed new technologies, improving on the weapon that had saved them. Soldiers trained in academies all over the planet, learning how to fight enemies from the stars. And something else was happening, something new. Messages began to arrive from other worlds. The first came from a species called They were small beings with large eyes and delicate hands. They had been conquered by the centuries ago and forced to serve as slaves. But when they heard about what happened at Earth, they rose up. They fought their masters. They won their freedom. We thank you, the message said. You showed us that they can be defeated. You gave us hope. We will never forget. More messages followed. From a race of warriors who had been crushed by weapons. From a peaceful people who had lost there to the Empire. From dozens of species scattered across the galaxy, all saying the same thing. The humans had done what no one thought possible. They had made the bleed. And now others were ready to join the fight. Admiral read these messages in her office. Each one filled her with a mix of pride and concern. Pride that humanity had inspired others. Concern that the war was growing larger than anyone had expected. We cannot fight thee alone, General one said. She was sitting across from, studying a map of known space. But with allies. We might have a chance, finished. A real chance. More than a chance. They are spread thin. They have conquered too many worlds, made too many enemies. If those enemies unite against them, the empire could fall. One nodded. It will take time, years of planning, years of preparation, but it is possible. Stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sky was blue and clear. Ships moved in the distance, patrolling Earth's orbit. Somewhere out there, her enemies were plotting revenge. But here on this day there was peace. "Call a meeting of the assembly," she said. "It is time to make some new friends." 3 years later, a fleet gathered at the edge of human space. It was unlike any fleet that had ever existed. Human ships flew beside vessels. Warships formed lines with transports. Dozens of species, united by a common goal. Admiral stood on the bridge of the new flagship, the Phoenix Reborn. It was the largest ship humanity had ever built, named in honor of Captain's destroyer that had fought so bravely in the first battle. "All ships report ready, Admiral," her communications officer said. Looked at the fleet through the main. Thousands of vessels, carrying millions of soldiers from 100 worlds, all of them here because humanity had shown them the way. "Open a channel," she said, "to all ships, to all species." The channel opened. Across the fleet, on bridges and in cockpits, beings of every shape and size listened. 3 years ago, said, they came to Earth. They demanded our surrender. They expected us to bow down, to become their slaves. They thought we were weak. She paused, letting the words sink in. They were wrong. We are humans. We do not surrender. We do not bow. We fight. And when we fight with fire. The fleet was silent, waiting. Today we take that fire to the. Today we bring freedom to every world they have conquered. Today we show the galaxy that tyranny will not stand. Not against us. Not against any of us. She raised her fist. They demanded surrender. The discussion ended. Now we respond with flames. Across the fleet, voices rose. Human voices and alien voices. Cheers and war cries in 100 languages. The sound of a galaxy rising against its oppressors. Smiled, it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a warrior who knew exactly what was coming. All ships, she ordered, advance. The fleet moved forward into the darkness, toward the heart of the Empire, toward the final war, toward victory or death. Either way, the galaxy would never forget. Humanity had answered with flames, and those flames would burn until the universe itself remembered. Never threaten Earth, never demand surrender, never underestimate humans. Because when humans fight back, empires fall. And this empire was about to learn that lesson the hard way.